Jyggalag is the least well-known Daedric prince, only able to be encountered in the Shivering Isles DLC for Oblivion for a short amount of time. The Daedric Prince of Order has seemingly had little influence among the population of Nirn. It seems somewhat antithetical that a Daedric prince, a title synonymous with impetuousness and vengefulness, would be dedicated to order, logic and mathematics, but it is precisely for this reason that I'm going to attempt to view things from Jyggalag's perspective in this video and suggest why it might be good if he conquered the universe. To be clear, I'm not genuinely saying that I 100% think this should happen, rather this is more an exploration of his viewpoint and how, from that unique perspective, his hegemony would be justified. Let us first begin by delving into the little that we do know about the Daedric Prince of Order. Much of our knowledge of the prince is derived solely from the Shivering Isles DLC, because the prince is barely mentioned in any other source outside of this DLC, and Jyggalag was obviously not present in Skyrim. The title of Prince of Order is highly ambiguous, but what it essentially means is that Jyggalag's essence is that of logic. It is said that the prince has mapped out every detail of existence, anticipating the logical set of events that will take place until the Kalpa, meaning the cycle of the universe, ends. Contingent on his ability to effectively foresee the logical future, Jyggalag was seen as the strongest Daedric prince, a fact substantiated because his realm of Oblivion started to infringe on the other princes when Jyggalag was at the height of his power many years ago.
Once I ruled this realm, a world of perfect order. My dominion expanded across the seas of Oblivion with each passing era.
However, there is a single major flaw to Jyggalag. He can only think logically. For him, there is only one logical way events can go, and only one logical way for him to act. But he fails to take into account agency. And this is how he was originally defeated by the other princes. They did the illogical and allied with one another despite centuries of rivalry, creating a powerful curse that forced Jyggalag to become Sheogorath, only allowed to return to his original form once an age for a brief period of time. And it was also illogicality that would free Jyggalag from his curse. The hero of Kvatch did the impossible and achieved apotheosis, mantling the title of Mad God and becoming the Daedric Prince Sheogorath, allowing for Jyggalag to permanently return to his original form again. What happened after he was freed seems unclear. Because the Shivering Isles technically take up the space of Jyggalag's plane of Oblivion, it's probable that Jyggalag simply doesn't have a plane of his own, or if he does, it's incredibly small. He says himself to the newly ordained Sheogorath that he will simply roam the voids of Oblivion.
Now, though, you have ended the cycle. You now hold the mantle of madness, and Jyggalag is free to roam the voids of Oblivion once more.
It seems so unusual and unique that Jyggalag would decide to live a life of solitude in the wastes of Oblivion. Most Daedric princes, such as Azura or Mephala, crave attention from mortals and love the power that is afforded to them by their station. This perhaps acts as a hallmark in suggesting how uninterested the Prince of Order is in personal power, or perhaps it's symbolic for how Jyggalag is broken. His impetus, his central philosophy, was proven wrong. Logic is not equal to the truth, and it's not unalienable. Rather, logic is a force that coexists with chance and the fickle minds of mortal beings. By the time of Skyrim, Jyggalag will have had about 200 years to contemplate the nature of existence. So we could assume that Jyggalag is not fanatically logical anymore, instead being a prince with an emphasis on logic, but that does not rely on it exclusively. So would Jyggalag make a good caretaker of the universe? For the sake of this scenario, let's assume that Jyggalag has retaken the Shivering Isles and has launched an invasion of Mundus and the other realms of Oblivion. Using his newfound knowledge about agency, alongside his logical foresight, he would be able to plan around unforeseen sets of events like he could never do before, enabling him to conquer the universe with relatively few setbacks. An obvious question to start with is, what would be Jyggalag's impetus to rule over the universe? As we've seen, he seems to have no interest in personal power. Rather, it might be for the same reason as last time. Simply that, logically, he should be the universe's king because of his power of deduction. Where that might not seem like a good enough reason for most people, Jyggalag doesn't care about anything else other than logic. It doesn't matter what he wants himself. What matters is that logic dictates that he become the paramount being. Especially so because he now knows how to logically adapt to unforeseen events like he could never do before. Or alternatively, he could go on a conquest to remove all threats to logic. In other words, incapacitating the other Daedric princes and any other being that wishes to usurp logic. But what would a conquered universe under Jyggalag look like? I think there are two different possible scenarios. The first one is a fairly benevolent one. In accordance with logic, Jyggalag, having no interest in forcing others to worship him or anything, would use his powers of deduction to foresee the possible future. This would enable him to, for instance, see that renewable energy should be developed on Nirn because coal and oil will eventually run out. He could also avert possible famines and outbreaks of diseases by bringing in precautionary countermeasures to ensure that there is a large, continuous and sustainable harvest and good public health. All in all, he would create a world where order is best served, a world of little change and thus of harmony, where men and elves and any being with agency is largely left alone unless it tries to go against Jyggalag's logical plans for the universe. Conversely, Jyggalag's rule might unintentionally bring about a hellish existence. Some have speculated that Jyggalag, following the Shivering Isles, deteriorated into madness and became a Shyggalag-like figure anyway. If this is the case and Jyggalag decided that to restore his sanity he must ensure that logic reigns supreme, then he might set off on a crusade to eliminate any challenge to logic, including not only eliminating the other Daedric princes, but also humans and elves, because their agency allows them to subvert Jyggalag's logical deductions. So it's hardly as if his hegemony would inevitably bring about a great existence for everyone, especially considering that most individuals are exactly that, individuals who don't necessarily conform to logic all the time. But there's also fundamentally the confusing question of what logic is, and that muddies the water surrounding Jyggalag's prospective actions. Because if one interprets what logic is as that which is probable given the natural state of the universe, then surely Jyggalag would be going against logic by intervening in the first place. But if we interpret logic in terms of a highly predictable state of affairs, no matter whether it's natural or not, then this would support Jyggalag as a figure who would wish to reduce the universe to a logical state. But this would contradict Jyggalag's supposed ability to predict the universe's entire future in its natural state, which I mentioned near the beginning of this video, and which would connote that the universe is in fact logical. So as you can see, there is a problem with Jyggalag because whereas something such as madness or destruction is a lot more univocal, order and logic are terms that seem a lot more equivocal in their connotations, making it hard to try and figure Jyggalag as a Daedric prince out. So to conclude, I think the only thing that can really be said about Jyggalag is that he's incredibly different from any other Daedric prince in his lack of narcissism. It is this fact, alongside his commitment to logic, that makes him such an intriguing figure, and that made me want to explore what a universe under his jurisdiction would be like. Comparatively, if you were to ask what a universe under Molag Bal was like, the answer would be simple. It would be an extension of Cold Harbour, and Molag Bal would torture people to his heart's content. But Jyggalag is different. He doesn't serve himself, but an ideal. But it remains up to debate whether his lordship over the universe would be a good thing or not. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more, then please do feel free to subscribe. I've done 2 other videos on why antagonists should win, on Alduin and Dagothur, and I plan on doing some more of these types of videos. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank my patrons, they really do help me out. Anyway, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.